In the hood, we talk about soldiers, niggas who ain't never scared, always down to die for the cause, fall for their flag. But the truth is, them niggas ain't no real soldiers. Real soldiers understand the chain of command, got discipline, strategy. Real soldiers been trained to kill. So no matter how hard you think you and your crew is, you ain't no real soldiers. You just some niggas playing at some fake of war that only end when everyone lose. These prophetic words were spoken by the ghost of grown Kanan during the opening segments of episode 402. The commentary is accompanied by a montage of Juke's physically demanding experience in the U.S. Army, where she outclassed most of her male contemporaries with a combination of attributes grown K applies to real soldiers: discipline, strategy, and an education in killing. That latter quality has only grown this season for Juke, manifesting into an increasing bloodlust with every passing episode. In episode 6, the origins of that demonic desire reached a fever pitch when interrogating Freddy's crew for answers on Famous's death, with Juke attempting to go the distance and complete her dark character arc, much to the dismay of her cousin. But how did she arrive at this point? And what other atrocities await her character to fully realize her fate and potentially place her and Kanan at odds for the foreseeable future? In this video, we'll analyze Jukebox's character, address the contributions to her diminishing humanity, and explore what inspired a mature Kanan to take the life of one of the few people he's ever loved. Before we begin, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and bell notification to immediately receive these videos. Also, big thank you to all of my Patreon family. If you'd like to be the next one, hit the link pinned to the comments below. And lastly, a spoiler alert is now in effect for all things power. Here we go. You see enough of your people die, pieces of you start dying too. And that shit keep happening, you lose so much of your damn self that you can't find you no more. And when you going like that, you going for good. Ain't nothing gonna bring you back. This additional insight, like many of these nuggets we received throughout Raising Kanan's introductions and conclusions, characterize where Jukebox currently resides perfectly. The story of Jukebox is one mired by death, loss, and hopelessness. Death in the form of the people snatched away from her by violence, loss in the form of her unrealized musical dreams, and hopelessness in the form of the environment that's a catalyst for it all. We've seen Juke lament the latter's cause way back in season 1, in the aftermath of Nicole's demise. Alleviating her cousin's guilt in the death of her first love, she stated, quote, "It's not your fault, Kanan. I don't even think I can blame myself. It's this place, Kanan. It's this place and this fucked up life we're living here." Arguably more than anything else, the environment of South Jamaica, Queens created the monster that now stands before us. It served as a counterpoint to every positive possibility or outcome set before young Juke. Let's begin with love. Jukebox's love deprivation started in her own home. If you remember, season 1 presented us with a very different version of Juke's relationship with her own father, Marvin. Marv was heavy into the streets and rarely communicated with his daughter about deep things, meaningful things. Whenever such an occasion was available, the interaction felt more forced than genuine. This is because Marvin resided in no man's land when it came to fatherhood and the qualities required to execute the job daily. And although we'd be hard-pressed to accuse Marvin of not loving his only child, we can easily charge him with not understanding the complexities of showing it. This is what made his therapy arc in season 2 so integral. This hardened criminal with a daughter had no roadmap to communicate his feelings in a healthy manner. What he did do, however, was pass down that harsh, gritty spirit in place of the nuanced one that love administers. And for all of Rock's faults as a mother, one thing she did exemplify was love for her son. Jukebox, on the other hand, didn't have a mother, at least early on. She was raised by a man and took on masculine qualities as a natural byproduct of upbringing and influence. This hodgepodge of circumstances led her to seeking that unfamiliar love from the unlikeliest of places, Nicole Bingham. Nicole inspired a new song in Juke's heart, pun intended. It awakened things within that were previously untapped from a sentimental standpoint. This uncharted territory brought Juke unique insight into a world unfettered by the ailments of the streets. Through Nicole, she felt what it was like to dream big for the first time. Additionally, and perhaps most critically, she experienced what it was like to truly love for the first time. To allow someone close enough to your heart to touch it and trust them not to damage it in the process. Though a natural singer from the days of her youth, Juke's forbidden relationship with Nicole only fanned the flames of that musical fire, giving her meaning, outlook, and purpose for the first time. These are the factors that must be considered when assessing just how crushing Nicole's death was to someone with Jukebox's background. Imagine going through life with no maternal example of love and a limited paternal one. Then, take into account that it was one of those aforementioned hood ailments that claimed Juke's life. and launched her back into a state of darkness, so to speak. This was the second major blow to Juke's humanity, the first coming from the sins of her mother, who chose to chase her own dreams over her family, ironically. But she wouldn't be estranged for much longer, as the daughter would seek out the mother she never knew, and tragically be affected by yet another loss at the hands of the evils of her environment. Jukebox's search for her mother symbolized a search for her own identity in a sense. Now stripped of the only form of love she ever knew in Nicole, and significantly void of it with Marvin, exacerbated by his foolish, violent action against her, Juke sought out a similar love from the most unfamiliar person. However, upon discovering the other half of herself, she came to realize that acceptance was fleeting. Not violently, as was the case with Marvin, but religiously. Jukebox's mother, Kenya, had a past full of sins, some more forgivable than others. Thus, she had dedicated her life to the will of God and His salvation. It's funny how that spiritual dedication never convicted her enough to right her original sin against her own daughter in the form of abandonment. And this is where the sinner typically turns away from the saint at the crossroads of accountability. Simply put, Kenya didn't seek out her own flesh and blood, even in the midst of spiritual renewal. But once the latter found her, she did everything in her power to change her image rather than building a foundation on the ground of which she left. You cannot rightfully abdicate your duties of parenthood, then attempt to hastily change the image of a child you had no say in developing. But this was the foolish road traveled by Juke's mother, and it only served to diminish her humanity to a greater degree than her father, who was actually on his own healing path while these events were taking place, trying to salvage the useful pieces of himself that he could sacrifice for the remains of his broken daughter. Juke's relationship with her mother would finally take the ugliest of turns due to the aforementioned, as she would attempt to put her daughter through a form of religious conversion therapy that would irreparably destroy their already fleeting bond. Moreover, this single event in Jukebox's life forever perverted her relationship with God altogether. The ghost of grown Kanan subtly echoes this sentiment, relaying how things like this turned her extremely cold-blooded, and that it hurts for as long as you're living. Someone carrying a pain unhealed is damned to cause that pain in the lives of others, and worse yet, even enjoy the infliction. This is what we're currently witnessing in Juke's young transition from doormat to demon. We're seeing someone who was betrayed by everything she believed to be true and everyone she placed faith in, until she arrived at the corner of apathy and anger and resided there until her demise. Kenya's newfound crimes against her daughter would regrettably never be mended nor answered for, as she would be murdered in cold blood before getting a chance at true reconciliation. By that point, though, it would have been futile anyway. She had served her purpose in this hood villain's origin story and successfully contributed to her inevitable doom. This brings us to the next major blow to Jukebox's humanity, the loss of her musical dreams. As I previously stated, Juke's relationship with Nicole and music were synonymous. So the fact that her late girlfriend's father introduced the opportunity for Juke to continue her musical aspirations had to be fate, right? Juke pursued music once again after being cast aside by her uncle Lou, another blow to her confidence in the endeavor. She would audition at the behest of Mr. Bingham's encouragement, along with her now supportive father and his renewed perspective courtesy of therapy. Then, she would not only audition, but actually make the final cut for the music group called Butter by the label heads. Butter was Jukebox's final bite at the musical apple, her last opportunity to put up or shut up, and she gave it her all, even ascending as the group's leader with her unique personality and raw abilities. But alas, this fairy tale would unfortunately conclude like all of the others, with her proximity to the streets interfering with the things she held most dear. At the moment of truth for Juke and her new group, everything would come to a screeching halt courtesy of the FBI and their investigation into the Thomas family that would spill over onto Marvin's daughter's biggest day. This crushing blow would fully eradicate Juke's passion for music altogether and sever her spiritual ties to Nicole by extension. The next disappointment for Jukebox would show itself in the form of her short-lived armed service career. Juke would excel as a soldier for a brief time, but their policy against her true self mirrored previous relationships where she was forced to suppress her identity in exchange for acceptance. Unwilling to acquiesce to the whims of others any longer, Juke would dishonorably dismiss herself from the army back to South Jamaica, Queens, with a dark past and an even bleaker future. Back home during this current season, we've been shown a Juke growing beyond the limits of her past, firmly resolving herself to a new course on her own terms. Worse yet, Juke has definitely abandoned the notion of dreams and replaced them with an intense realism, as she would convey to Kanan back in 403, "I only dream when I'm asleep, nigga, and I'm wide awake in this motherfucker now." Upon further analysis, what we're witnessing here is a once hopeful girl maturing into a demoralized woman who's decided to take what she can get from the hand she's been dealt and the life she's been given. given and not attempt to transcend it ever again, unwilling to wrestle with the accompanying disappointment that usually comes with trying. All of this was buffered and cemented by the murder of her and Kanan's childhood friend, Famous, the final straw into Juke's descent into darkness. Directly preceding the tragic affair, Jukebox was in a place that wouldn't abide victimhood any further. Going forward, things would be different, and her first kill secured this vow, making her feel something she had never felt prior to: powerful. Taking a life didn't have the lingering effect on her as it did with the normal mind. On the contrary, taking a life gave her life purpose, as she repeatedly had her own life, happiness, and joy snatched away time and again. Now, it was time out for the giving and high time for the taking on her own terms. This fractured psychology coincides with the ghost of grown Kanan's quote at the beginning of 406, while memorializing Famous. To paraphrase, when people you love die, pieces of you begin to die with them until there's nothing left. Kanan was offered a front row seat to the new and improved Jukebox and fearfully observed his cousin's dwindling humanity as she terrorized Freddy's crew one by one. He noticed the same thing we noticed as the audience. Jukebox is too far gone to ever return to any semblance of reason again. Remember, Juke was prepared to kill every member of Freddy's crew as retribution for Famous, whether they were responsible for his death or not. She's lost all sense of tactfulness and rationale. Only a killer remains, with a lust for blood to replenish every loss she's ever taken. The mean trick is that this is an insatiable desire, but she couldn't see it. Kanan, however, had 20/20 vision in the matter and silently lamented Juke's urge to take things too far. It is for this reason that a fully grown Kanan was forced to kill the much darker version of his cousin back in OG power. You see, for all of K's villainous leanings and shortcomings, he's never lacked a caring heart underneath the calluses. This is something that Jukebox would even highlight back in Raising Kanan episode 202. While watching the classic film Cooley High, Kanan got visibly emotional at the death of Cochise, like any real nigga would. After briefly mocking her beloved cousin, Juke quickly admired his display of vulnerability and heart, affirming that, quote, "Shit's the best part about you, Kanan, the part that cares. Don't ever lose that. Don't let nobody take that shit from you either." We were initially introduced to that caring aspect of Kanan through his unlikely bond with Tariq, and it was Juke's unrelenting threats against his existence that forced his hand in her demise. Kanan loved Jukebox, and Juke adored Kanan. Their origin saga has presented us with such a beautiful representation of their bond that it only heightens the tragedy of their unfortunate conclusion. One propelled by a fractured girl who matured into a callous woman who made it her mission to take things too far in order to fulfill everything she'd ever lost, but could never regain. Based on where the story currently stands, Juke has plenty more carnage to dish out that likely factored into Kanan's future decision as well. Her onslaught may begin in the streets, but could even hit closer to home and re-rupture the relationship she's built with her father Marvin, possibly even resulting in his poetic death by her hands, the killer being taken down by his own creation, his own seed. It's something we could very well see. But what are your thoughts on all of this? What do you think has contributed to making Jukebox the monster that she is? And how far do you think she'll take it before the end of season 4? Be sure to drop me your opinions in the comments below. As always, I thank you for watching today's video. If you liked today's video, go ahead and drop a $1 on that Cash App for us, hit the like button, share it with your friends who are Power fans, and subscribe for more content such as this. This is Rudy P. Magic of Rudy P. Magic Beats, and have a blessed one until the next one. Peace, y'all.